Have SJWs become the racist villains they claim to fight, turning the oppressed from black to white? What up, what up? 大家好，我是唢呐。Thank you guys so much for liking and sharing our last video. And a big shout out to everyone who donated to us. We really appreciate it.
Gracias para vivir en la casa, en las escuelas,
And after going through all of your comments, real talk, some of you said exactly what I expected. It never fails. There's always the sizable minority that perverts the ideas for their own confirmation bias.
你们黑人都是这样子，黑人女生都是很麻烦，女生都很麻烦，年轻人都很麻烦。
我跟你讲，motherfucker，不是每个黑人、每个白人、每个中国人或女生或每个年轻人。If you only use race and gender to target people, then we at 好机车 only have one message for you.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
Because that makes you no different from the very people you claim to be against. That makes you just another goddamn extremist. So far, we've showed you the prequel to extreme PC culture. From postmodernism to social constructionism to neo-Marxism, all these isms have been combined into an ideology, an idea. But they're just ideas, right? Just people with different views on the world. Totally harmless. Bruh, the most dangerous thing about an idea is
Ideas are bulletproof.
ideas turn black girls into woke mermaids, yo. And everyone knows we don't swim, bruh. That's why it took an all-expense-paid cruise to get us out of Africa in the first place. By the way, that stereotype exists because historically swimming pools weren't in black neighborhoods and most public pools were guarded by the police to keep blacks from coming in. But who cares about that anyway, right? Disney solved the problem with just one movie.
Part of that world.
So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. On this episode, I'm going to reveal the origins of the social justice warrior. And I gotta say, after we sorted through this information, it left us depressed as fuck, yo. This story is more ridiculous than the Black Little Mermaid. And of course, we've broken it into 3 parts just for you. So get your snorkels ready and let's dive into the sea of blood.
Aquaman.
In our previous video, we mentioned how many of the free-thinking anti-war protesters sought shelter in universities in order to avoid conscription in the Vietnam War. Well, many of them chose the path of least resistance, enrolling in the easiest degree programs available, and it just so happened that those programs were the ideal training grounds for all of the ism ideology we mentioned earlier. I shit you not, ranking highest on the top 16 easiest degree programs in America was psychology at number 1, English at number 3, education at number 4, with social work and sociology all ranking in the top 10 easiest. Now, many purport that education is the most important aspect of every country because it shapes the next generation. And in America, the country that spends more per student than any other country in the world, you barely have to pass your SATs to qualify as a shaper of the youth's minds. And once you do graduate with your education degree, your pay will be based not on how many skills you have or how well you perform at educating the youth, but on how many degrees you have, with a salary difference of up to $3,000.
Fat stacks, cash money.
But that's not all, because if you want to make more money, then educating the youth is not enough. You need to become an educational administrator. You know, the person who sits behind a desk and manages students and occasionally manages teachers too. These guys make nearly double what teachers make. So these were the programs that the draft dodgers gravitated to. And by the 1980s, America found itself on the cusp of an education crisis that would send them from the #1 education system in the world to number 18 in less than 30 years.
Jesus.
In 1988, the National Commission of Excellence in Educational Administration released a damning report. I'll give you the Cliffs Notes, and if you want to read the entire thing, check the link down in the description below. Firstly, they recommended that over half of the 500 university-led educational administrator programs should be shut down immediately. Secondly, colleges should stop teaching educational administrators. Thirdly, that administrative programs should be modeled after those in other professional schools. And finally, the teacher licensing program should be completely reformed. Their reasons? The leadership sucks, the leadership program sucks, and the cooperation between school districts and universities also fucking sucks.
To me, this situation is a blood-soaked, nightmarish hellscape.
Now, after this report was released, people lost their shit. And then, a book titled Nation at Risk came out stating just how dangerous the situation was. But just like in that movie Don't Look Up, no one really gave a damn.
We're trying to tell you that the entire planet is about to be destroyed.
You know, we just keep the bad news light.
Right, it helps the medicine go down.
But in this case, reality was way more fucked than that movie. Not only did the government and the school systems not care, but over the next 20 years, in addition to none of the administrative programs being shut down, over 100 more programs would be open. And under the education field, 4 new degree programs would be created: higher education management, educational equity, and
Wait for it.
social justice education. Yes, sir. And as long as your degree is within the education department and your credits can transfer over, which most of them do, spend another year or two and you can get a degree in social justice, netting you more pay, of course. In 1989, Rita Kramer was determined to find out what the hell was causing the downfall of America's once top education system. So she spent 2 years traveling the country, visiting 15 schools and universities, interviewing teachers and administrators. In 1991, she wrote a tell-all book called Ed School Follies. In this book, she concluded that students' education was being focused on self-esteem and equity rather than knowledge, and that as a result, students are becoming more concerned with opinions and feelings. And that teachers saw themselves more as social workers than educators with a mission to cure an ailed society. Now, here is what one teacher was quoted saying in her book. Encourage discussion among the students. Do not make yourself the facilitator of learning. You are not there to feed them information, but to be sensitive to their need for positive reinforcement, for self-esteem.
What?
In plain English, don't be a teacher, be a cheerleader.
Save the cheerleader, save the world.
Because like we said before, teaching well won't net you more pay, but getting more degrees sure will. All you gotta do is make the students feel good. Remember how in that Yale video the students were all talking about their feelings, saying I feel instead of I think? Well, of course they did, motherfucker, because their teachers didn't teach them to think, they taught them to feel.
My emotions!
So at this point, you might be a little surprised that SJWs have their own degree program, under education no less. But surely you can't just go anywhere to get a social justice degree, right? It must be at one of those community colleges, sketchy online schools, or a trade school, right?
Yeah, probably.
Let's take a trip to the most prestigious and highest ranked universities in America, the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where not only can you major in social justice, but you can get a bachelor's, master's, and even a PhD in social justice. I wonder what the curriculum is like. Pop on over to the website and they're happy to give you a full layout. And while going down the list, there were 3 courses that caught my attention: feminist theory, gender in the US empire, and what the fuck is critical race theory?
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
In order to understand this, I must do the one thing that all black men stereotypically absolutely can do. I need to go deep. So after a 3-second Google search, I found the Critical Race Theory Wikipedia page. CRT, as it's called, purports that race is a social construct created for the benefit of white people to suppress non-white people. Word? And that all US law based on neutrality maintains a racially unjust social order.
What?
So what is the basis for this theory?
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Wait for it.
Critical theory. Remember them German niggas in the school basement who conceptualized the neo-Marxist New Left in 1937? Well, those guys are indirectly responsible for the very curriculum being taught in American universities in 2022, yo. This is one of the most controversial theories being debated in the US right now, with its critics claiming that CRT focuses not on facts, but on storytelling. According to the government report on understanding education for social justice, when educators were asked to define what social justice was, not only did they have trouble agreeing on a clear definition, but their conflicting individual definitions resulted in varying levels of commitment when it came to executing curricular duties. In short, the motherfuckers couldn't decide on who should do what. And the report concluded, and I quote, "The immediate difficulty one confronts when examining the idea of social justice is the fact that it does not have a single essential meaning. In fact, at the same time we are seeing this term in so many places, we are also seeing a backlash against it. And this brings us to today's video. Jordan B. Peterson, arguably one of the most influential figures of this decade, who has become public enemy number 2, Andrew Tate still currently holds the number 1 slot, is giving a talk at a university when a very polite and gentle feminist asks him this question.
Hi Jordan, my question is, what is the antidote towards toxic masculinity?
Well, the antidote is responsible masculinity. And what does responsible mean? It means, well, if you're responsible, then you're trying to do what's honest first. So you're careful with your speech and your actions. You're careful with your speech in that you don't say things that you know to be false. And you're careful in your actions so that you don't have to lie about what you do. That's a good start. And then the next thing would be that you're capable of taking responsibility for yourself at least, so that once you're an adult, no one else has to bend over backwards to ensure that you don't unduly suffer in the world. If you get halfway good at that, well then, you might think about taking on the responsibility of a family and contributing to your community and doing all those things in a harmonious manner. And that's obviously the antidote to toxic masculinity, which is not a phrase I would generally use. I just think about it as sinful behavior is a much more accurate representation personally, but it's honesty and responsibility. And I do think about it as a function of harmony.
So, men should be truthful, honest, take responsibility, and give back to society. Sounds decent enough. I'd argue that many women could agree with that idea. I mean, what woman wants an overgrown child for a partner? But unfortunately, Jordan's answer is not sufficient enough for the lady, and she presses him. And what happens next sums up the idea of this entire episode perfectly.
I said that didn't cover really toxic masculinity, right? You just said that you have to be honest and responsible as a man.
What precisely, since we're going to pursue this, what precisely is toxic masculinity? As opposed to, say, toxic femininity or toxic humanity. What exactly are you asking me about?
I really want to know what you like, how you would describe toxic masculinity. Because
no, I want you to define what toxic masculinity constitutes. Since we're going to define things so carefully, let's do it.
Well, I think.
Okay, guys, sorry, but we really have to move on. So there will be more questions later on. There will be a lot of opportunities.
No,
to
but
ask
maybe
questions.
let's if you.
Oh shit! Saved by the bell, but the crowd ain't having it. Accountability is a dish best served fresh and immediately.
Okay, so let's define it shortly.
All right, shortly, please.
Okay, I think that the moment when you kind of, I have a hard time to kind of describe it in English. Let's say, that you kind of go over a boundary that kind of neglects the freedom of the opposite, gender or whatsoever. So that's toxic masculinity, and that you kind of have.
But that would also be toxic femininity.
Well, may I finish my sentence,
sure.
Please? Thank you. And then also, I lost my sentence now. But no, I will be back. I'm back. Yeah, can someone help me here in the audience?
So, English is not her native language, which makes it difficult for her to define toxic masculinity. Jordan interrupted her, which made her forget how to define toxic masculinity, which then required her to ask for help from the crowd to assist her in defining toxic masculinity.
That's suspicious.
Remember, feminist theory is part of social justice education, yo. Now in the final part, Jordan Peterson is going to sum up in clear, concise language exactly why she's having trouble finding the right words to support her ideology.
Okay, so before we move on, let me point something out, that I was willing to undertake this line of discussion, allowing for the possibility that the category of toxic masculinity had some content, right? But if we're going to pursue that line of reasoning and quibble about the answer, then we're certainly going to quibble about the definition that's embedded in the question. And so part of what's happened in our discourse is that we're required ethically to assume a priori, merely out of politeness, that the utterance toxic masculinity actually constitutes a meaningful phrase. And if you push it, you find very rapidly that it doesn't, because it's very, very, very difficult to define, and definitions actually matter. And so if it's a matter of transgressing against the boundaries of gender-appropriate behavior, well, first of all, that indicates that there's something universal and normative about gender-appropriate behavior, which is something that people who push the idea of toxic masculinity generally tend not to presume. And second, it's just as likely to happen among women as among men, in which case it's not toxic masculinity.
Now, I know what many of you might be thinking. 美国学生这么笨呢，都不开放都没办法用脑袋去思考东西耶，怎么办呢？ Remember, yo, it's not all of the students. In fact, many of them are thinking just like you and me, yo. Don't believe me? Our good friend Peter Boghossian went to the University of Southern California to hear the students say for themselves what they felt campus life was like. And I gotta warn you, the stuff they're about to say is depressing as fuck.
You find you can't say stuff in the classroom?
Yeah.
Like what kind of stuff?
Just anything that there's two different sides on.
It's like everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's two sides to, I'd say, the culture war today. And if you're not on the side that's dominated on most college campuses, then you're not really going to be saying much in terms of what you really feel, you know? I'd say most of my conversations about my actual opinions are most like non-existent.
Because why?
Retaliation by someone who might not believe in what I believe in or anything really.
Do you like living like that? I mean, you couldn't possibly like that.
No, but you know, you adapt.
For me, I've lost a lot of friends the last couple of years. Well, for one thing, the George Floyd thing, you know, I don't know if you remember, a lot of people were posting black squares on their social media. I didn't do that, and I lost a lot of friends. They didn't think I was with the Black Lives Matter protest and all that kind of stuff.
Like, let's say, for example, LGBTQ+. I'm not saying I know too much about it. I want to learn more about it, you know? But like sometimes I ask a question and I get backlash for it. For no reason, when I'm simply curious and I just want to learn, you know? But sometimes questions are unacceptable. And I didn't know that, you know? So sometimes like there's things that are just should be socially acceptable, but they're not, because I mean no harm, you know? Just want to learn. They're too defensive of who they are, you know? And that doesn't let me learn. I mean, if they want to fight for unity, you know, that's what we all want to do. But when you can't ask and you can't learn and they're uncomfortable by it, then it doesn't really allow, you know?
Do you think this problem is more on the left than the right?
Oh, it's got to be more on the left. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I know the right has issues too, but the left is definitely imposing a lot of things over everybody. We're at a point of no return where we're never going to be.
You really think so?
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be the same again in this country.
Well, I hope you're wrong.
So, after watching this video, you might think, 唢呐，这种 social justice education 在美国是很少的部门有而已呀。大学这么多科学部门人这么多 ，SJ 教学影响力应该不大，对吧？我跟你讲。This is just the beginning of the extreme left occupation strategy. In the next video, we'll uncover their next step, which will leave even the students themselves to call the college curriculum made in North Korea. More campus madness to follow.
Jordan Peterson! Jordan Peterson!
And the rising momentum of woke culture that is very quickly occupying the entire world.
Get your fucking camera away from me! Get your fucking camera away
Then
from
if
me!
you don't want to be in my camera, get out of the way! It's upside down! Just like your ideology! Alright!
Now, some of you are probably thinking, wow, we're all fucked. We're all going to hell in a handbasket. 卖欢乐啦. There's no way we're gonna get you through this entire series without giving you a proper happy ending. 不可能的代誌啦. Because in the final episodes of this series, I'll be introducing you to the young, bright, intelligent, fearsome warriors who dare to stand up for what's right, what's free, and fight for true equality.
让我们继续看下去.
But before 我们继续看下去, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace!